The first time I ever sailed a sailboat, meaning actually handling the boat myself and not just being a passenger on it, was many years ago on a fantastic bass fishing lake up in Canada. As a matter of fact, this is the boat right here, a little Sunfish Sailboat. Without knowing what I was doing, I took the boat out on the lake and just figured it out as I went. It felt like a lifelong friend. Immediately, I was hooked on sailing. I was fortunate enough to sail this boat a few more times in subsequent years, always enjoying a wonderful experience. Well, this year I got to sail her again with a brand new experience. In the world of sailboating, there is a term called single-handed sailing. What that means is sailing a boat all by yourself or solo sailing. The minimum requirements of single-handling a boat are using one hand for steerage on the tiller and the other hand for controlling the lines for the sails. Well, I have taken the term single-handed to its literal level. In order to capture the images you are viewing right now, I had to handle the boat with one hand on the tiller to steer and the other hand on the camera. That involves securing the main sheet, that is, the line that controls the mainsail, by locking it into a jam cleat so I could steer with one hand and shoot with the other. That worked out okay for a while until the wind picked up and got a little squirrely. Next thing I knew, the wind was knocking the sail into the water and tipping the boat over. That's usually a relatively simple condition to correct. You either turn upwind or you let your main sheet out. Since my main was locked into the jam cleat so I could hold the camera, I turned upwind, but I overcompensated, and now the wind was knocking me down from the other side. That's where I figured I'd better turn off the camera and start just sailing the boat. I quickly stashed the camera in a storage compartment in the hull, but before I could release the main sheet, the wind had knocked me over, threw me out of the boat, and now I'm in the water on top of the sail. First thing I thought was, damn, I've never been in this position before. My second thought, a mere millisecond later, was to react. My first instinct was to ensure that I was not tangled in any of the lines because the boat was continuing to go completely over as the weight of the mast sank pointing to the bottom of the lake, and I didn't want to get pulled down being wrapped around any lines. I remember also thinking at that time, I will always be wearing a sharp knife from now on every time I ever go sailing. When I realized I was clear of any lines, I reached into the rolling boat and grabbed my camera. Then I swam away from the boat. My next thought was, thank God I decided to wear a life jacket, because that's something I had never done before while ever sailing this boat. I decided to take a picture also because, hey, that's just me. Then I realized as I was being blown away from the boat that I better get back to the boat. So I secured the camera and I went about the business of figuring out how to try to right this boat. I had seen some YouTube videos on this, and it worked out just as I had seen on YouTube. YouTube is awesome. I love YouTube. I did run into one little glitch, though, as I tried to right the boat. As I started pulling myself back up into it, the main sheet was still locked into the jam cleat, and the boat started sailing away at a pretty fast pace as I was climbing into it. I pulled myself into the boat, and just as I fell into the cockpit, the wind knocked it down again, throwing my 200-pound body surprisingly far on top of the sail again, and the boat started sinking again. Well, I'm a fast learner, so I swam around again to the upwind side of the boat, went through the procedure to right the boat, and the first thing I did as I tried to pull myself in this time was to release the main sheet from the jam cleat so the boat wouldn't start to run away from me again. I got it right this time after a few bruises on my elbows and my arms, and it worked like a charm. I got inside the boat and got positive control over it, but I must admit, I realized that I was pretty fatigued by this whole exercise, and again I was thankful that I had decided to wear a life vest. I also must say that I've been sailing more and more recently, and this was a very positive experience for me, and I learned a few important lessons from it. And I highly recommend for anyone who takes up sailing to take out a small boat like a Sunfish or a Laser on a calm day in a deep lake and purposely tip it over and figure out how to right it and get back in it. And I say to take it out in a deep lake because you don't want to foul the mast and bend the mast or foul the rigging or anything, and this is an experience that you definitely need to have under your belt. So just make sure, like I said, you do it in deep water. Have fun. They call it turtling a boat. I now know how to turtle a boat and get back in it. And hey, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Happy sailing.
Bye.